Kevin Kraft. How are you, sir?
Chilling, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing well after, little technical glitches. But anyways, so I'm speaking with Kevin Kraft, co-host of the Jason Ellis Show, and he is the man behind a lot of the voices and characters that you hear on the show, which is pretty awesome.
Finally,
So
my goofing off
paid
has paid
off.
off. Yep. The stuff that used to
You
get me
know,
in trouble did.
I was thinking about your trajectory path of your career. So I'm from New York. I grew up listening like Howard to me was, like everyone, he was the go-to in the mornings. And then I didn't know you were on the show until later listening to Jason. And I started thinking, you know what? When he was on there, Howard was really doing well. I mean, I love Howard, but his show sucks now. I'm going to say it right here. His show is just nothing compared to, it's a shell of what it used to be as far as I'm concerned. So that's how I found you guys. I'm late to the party for the Jason Ellis show, but about 5 years ago, I, I'd heard of Jason because he's been on Howard. And anyways, that's how I found you guys. And then, so anyways, you were on there. Then you worked with Bubba, right?
Well, that was sort of like my gig. So I started interning for Howard, and I was lucky enough where I wasn't going to school at the time. I had gone to this broadcasting school that has a credit program. So the only way you can do internships is if you're getting college credit. And they had a thing set up where once you finish and you get certified, you're still getting college credits. So I could double up, and I was doing double shifts, and I just absorbed everything I could and got my fingers in everything I could, and was like, "What's that guy doing? Teach me that. What's he doing? Teach me that. Hey, are there any shows I can help out on?" And when there was finally a job opening, they hit me up and they're like, "Hey, do you want to get brought on full time?" So one of the things I did, I had a few small things that I did for Howard's show specifically, but the majority of my job description was helping out on other shows. And one of them, yeah, was Bubba. Yeah, I had
Well,
to get his feed from Tampa and sort of just transcribe the show. They like to keep detailed logs of all the shows that were on the channels and stuff. So a lot of stuff like that, a lot of behind the scenes, not the fun stuff I'm doing now. It was not a lot of it was creative work. It was mostly just button pushing, note taking stuff.
well, have you noticed that this is what I was thinking is that you were with Howard and then you did some stuff with Bubba and Howard, like I said, I'm really just, oh well. And then Bubba's in shambles. I mean, I don't know what he used to be great to listen to. And now you can't really find him very much. But anyways, so then you
Yeah,
went to
I don't know
Jason.
what happened with
Yeah.
Bubba's show.
He just
It
had a
sounded like
meltdown.
it sounded like he had like a lot of legal troubles, and he got dropped by some stations, and I think he might be internet only at this
I
point.
think so. Yeah. I think he may be on an AM channel. But anyways, so you went to Jason. What I'm looking at is you're like a lucky charm because wherever you go, the show's successful, and you guys have really taken off. And I know
I don't think I had anything to do with.
well, I know.
Success.
Hey, take the compliment and run with it, kid.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I did launch Howard's career. You got a good point there. I'm gonna claim now.
But yeah, so you're on Jason's show now, which is pretty awesome. And it really sucked because I loved listening to the his channel, that played all the old shows. And that's how I heard how you kind of got involved in the show and where they made you do the phone calls or that one bit where you were off the air, I guess. And they had people calling in and they told you like they played a joke. Didn't they play like a joke on you, like your last day or something, where they had you take over the show? And
Oh
then people,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They had so when I first moved out to LA, I was just doing part-time stuff, and I kind of was done with radio. I was like, all right, if I started with Howard, like that's the peak. There's nowhere to go from there. So I moved out to LA to do some writing and try and work in TV and film and stuff. But I didn't have any connections out here. I didn't have any friends out here. I had nothing. So I just sort of threw myself at the situation to see what would happen. But when I worked for Howard, one of the shows that I worked on was the Riley Martin show. So
Riley.
people that don't know Riley, he was this crazy old crusty dude who claimed he was abducted by aliens and stayed in contact with them his whole life. And he was on Jerry Springer and stuff, but he was a big Howard personality, and he did a show once a week at midnight where he would take calls, and it was almost like people just trying to catch him. They would ask him questions about this race of aliens that he was homies with, and he had an answer for everything. So it was awesome. I loved doing it, but I would have to drive a van filled with equipment from Manhattan to his house in Jersey once a week. And, I'd already listened to Howard's show that day. So I would just flip through the channels. And sometimes when I'd be driving, Jason was on. And I knew Jason from, being a wannabe skate rat back in the day. And I was like, oh, I know who Jason Ellis is. Let me check this show out. And it was awesome. So I always said when I moved out to LA, the only thing that could keep me in radio would be Jason Ellis. And a few months in, I got a call from another big radio guy, Will Pendarvis, former New Yorker himself, being like, hey, we need you to come into the studios and help out. So I showed up there not knowing what the gig was, and it was Ellis. So they, I showed up a few times. They liked me, so they kept bringing me back, but I couldn't get full time. So I was living in LA, paying LA rent, but making part-time money. And I set a deadline. I was like, look, this isn't on you guys, but Sirius needs to make me a full-time employee and pay me for the hours I'm working, or else I can't afford to live out here. I got to walk. And that date came. The company didn't bring me on. So I was like, fuck, this is my last day. So they were like, hey, we're going to, like, as the show was wrapping up, they're like, you know what, Kevin, why don't you come on in here and, say a little goodbye and just address the listeners. So I sat down, and right when I started talking, they were on the phone with somebody in New York, and they were like, yeah, go to commercial. And that was how my last day ended then. But luckily, the story had a happier ending, and I got brought back full time, and now we're doing the whole podcast gig.
And it's going well. I love it. I love when that little pop up. I try and catch the live shows when I can, but it's just nice still having you guys involved. It's like if it's weird. It's like friends you want to listen to and hear their stories and stuff. Hey, speaking of friends, and you mentioned them, Will. I asked Jason a little bit. Do you miss not having him around? Because he was fun.
Fuck yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Will. Not only did Will and I always get along, and we tried to a couple of times a month go out to lunch and just sit down and throw half ideas at each other, and we were very good at completing each other's shit. So if I had a half-ass idea for a radio bit, like, man, I just don't know where this would go, he was very good at completing that. So not only did Will and I just work really well together, we're very good friends. And he's a big part of the reason why I have a job and a radio career in Los Angeles. So all of this has been weird. Like not going into an office, doing a show, only recording 2 days a week, not doing commercial breaks, just the whole format change, not having Will around. It's still a lot of getting used to going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how because you had a schedule. You had you knew when the show was coming on and stuff, and now you guys planned it out usually around the same time. But yeah, it must have been weird to all of a sudden just have it. And the thing with Sirius is that channel I was talking about, the Jason's channel. I was listening to it, and then all of a sudden it started the app was doing its spinning thing. And the next thing I know, I went to refresh and the channel was gone like that. Just you guys were erased from the system just like that. It's like you no longer existed.
Yeah. I feel like when they let shows go, they also let their replays go.
Yeah. And there's
quite a few casualties happen around the same time. So.
And when you made the announcement, we were thinking, because you're on vacation, so it's like they just died or got fired, because that's usually what you guys did when someone. But no, and then when Jason came on, was talking to his Instagram, it was like, oh shit.
Yeah, so, that's one of the problems when you're ball busters. When something really happens, people still think you're busting balls. Like it took a couple of weeks before people realized we weren't kidding, and then we actually did get canceled by Sirius.
How are you feeling about that? When you were probably pretty freaking out a little bit, weren't you?
I was, yeah, because they told us, right before Thanksgiving. So in a time where the economy is shit, less and less people are hiring. Like people are more in the firing business than the hiring business. So, to have that stability throughout all this crazy time, and then just to have the rug pulled out from underneath you, with the company for 15 years, it was definitely scary at first. But like I said, when I moved to LA, I had no plan. I had nothing. Like I could have stayed with Howard, when I left, I didn't know if he was re-signing or not. And, you know, looking back, it's pretty naive of me, being that it's looking like he's going to have at least a 21 year career there. And I bailed after 5 years in a panic. But, I was in my 20s and I thought it was a good time to like try something new. But I came out here with no plan, no safety net, no nothing. And I like challenges. So it was definitely scary. And then on the other side of the coin, it was a little exciting because it's like, all right, well, now what? Now I gotta hustle again. I gotta find a new plan. I gotta try something else. I didn't know if Jason was gonna, just quit or try something new or go back into skating. I had no idea what the plan was. And then eventually Jason reached out and he was like, hey, I'm getting a lot of podcast offers. You guys down to give this a shot? And Tully and I were like, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm happy. And I'm sure a ton of people are happy about it. So let's talk about you and your creativity. Where do you've got an uncanny ability. You know what? I gotta compliment you first. How you guys end the show now with the how you do the outro with all your little, you put that whole bit together of the outro from the series show to how you make it the sounds with your voice. As soon as I hear that, dude, I have not yet not to laugh every time I hear you start, because it's just the effort you put into it. It's so funny how you made that outro, and it's all like tracks and stuff, right? Overlapping. I don't know how that stuff works, but I know you didn't do it all one shot, but it's very entertaining.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
I sort of just found different things. It's the Enter the Dragon theme from the Bruce Lee movie. So we used to end the show with that, and I just listened to it, and I'll just go like point, 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 point to sounds I hear, and just listen to it a bunch of times, and then picked up on different little things that I could do, and then just layered 3 different tracks of me doing 3 different stupid noises. And it's a little peek into my brain. I hear that shit in my head all day. And I have people reach out to me on social media and they're like, damn it, every time I turn on the radio and I'm listening to a song, my brain just points them now. And I'm like, yep, welcome to my world.
So is that how Tired That Tune came about, when you would do that? The same thing?
Yeah. Yeah, because before I got into radio, I was doing construction, and I had this one foreman that I would goof off with all the time. I was fucking terrible at my job. I had no idea what I was doing, and they just kept me around because I would crack jokes all day. And they're like, all right, yeah, it's at least fine freezing my ass off all day in the winter if this dickhead's being a court jester over here. So anytime we would be listening to songs, me and this one foreman would pwamp and squow the guitar solos. So, Howard was big on the construction site too. So once Howard was done, we'd have, 5-6 more hours left in the workday. And these guys like to put on the classic rock channel. So anytime someone was doing a guitar solo, it'd be like, squam, squam, pwam, 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 pwam. And it became like an inside joke. And I started doing that around my friends, and like, man, you're fucking annoying. You stop that pwam, pwam, pwam shit. What the hell is that? And like I said, when I hear a song on the radio and it has a repeating, catching thing that my brain picks up on, I'll start pointing it in my head. And I just made it like a name that tune style game. And I tested it with my buddy Shuddy Boy, who I co-host my podcast with. And I played it for him. He was the first person I ever played it for before I took it to Jason and the guys and played it on air. And I'm like, this shit's so weird, man. I don't know how this is gonna fly. What do you think? Is this gonna fly with these guys? And he took a listen to like a couple of songs and he looks at me. He's like, man, they're gonna fucking fire your ass. This is so stupid.
Surprise.
Yeah, I guess people liked it. So
so is that how a lot of your characters, like Droopy Dog, and I mean David Lee Roth, when you make that switch to that really high pitched like scream that he does is almost dead on. So how do you come up with the same thing? They just evolved how that Tired That Tune was back in the construction days. Some of those things you just have always been with you.
Yeah, I liked, I was a very noisy kid, and I was very hyperactive, a little ball of ADHD bouncing off the walls and ceiling nonstop. So I would make noises, I would impersonate people, and I don't know, it was something I just did from when I was a kid. I always liked doing funny voices and trying to learn how to imitate people. And Droopy, I like just doing characters because it just opens up a whole different, like when you get into character as Droopy, I can make jokes as Droopy that if I made them as me, that's not funny. But it's funny when certain characters say them. So Droopy was somebody I wanted to do an impression of my entire life because he's just. I always loved those cartoons as a
cartoons,
kid.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's a nice well of comedy and riffing, and I could never get it. And I was at a comic book convention one year, and I'm not really a panel guy, but I had a friend who was on. She does a lot of voices in cartoons and stuff. So she was like, "Hey, will you come check out this panel I'm a part of?" And it was all these different people that do voices in cartoons and stuff. And I watched this guy talking about finding voices and stuff, and he starts doing Droopy, and he pulled his cheek out and started doing Droopy, and it sounded just like him. I was like, holy shit. So I pulled my phone out and I set a reminder. I was like, try Droopy, pull cheek. And I was at home. The reminder went off and I was like, oh, fuck, that's right. So I go into the bathroom and I start doing the Droopy voice, and then I pull my cheeks out and I was like, oh dear. And I was like, whoa, that was the missing piece. Holy shit. And that's sort of the reason it became a character on the Ellis Show was, you know, we like to cover headlines and whatever's happening in the news and riff on that. And sometimes Tully will bring a story up that's sort of sad or depressing. And, you know, it's a big story of the day, but it can be kind of hard to riff on. And after a show one day, Jason was like, shit, man, sometimes those bummer news stories really just put me in a mood. I don't know how to get out of it. Let's try and just leave that stuff out. And it just hit me. It was like, what if we just have Droopy deliver those bad news? Because then, you know, they're sad stories, and, you know, Droopy never delivers anything that's uplifting or cheery story. But that story still gets out. You know, we still cover it, and it makes a joke out of it. And we gave it a shot. It seemed to work, and people like it. And it's a tough tightrope walk because you can't do it with everything. But it's sometimes I throw stuff out there, and they look at me like, you sick fuck. Why would you do that story? So there's a very small area of news stories that work with it. And sometimes I get outside of it and I'm like, ah, shit, I hope people don't get bummed out at me.
No, not at all. Especially because I know what you're saying. Like, you'll be talking about something in news and you go, and they'll be like, well, what happened? You go, she's dead, you know, in your Droopy voice. And you think there's a different ending, and it's like, oh, she's dead. So yeah, it's a great character. I love hearing Droopy. Now you got the Pope. And so let me ask you this, because you're into comedy. And so how about that script you wrote and you got the one where the marijuana, I wonder if I remember correctly, it was like superpowers, gave someone superpowers. And then you said someone kind of jacked it from you as far as the whole story, or?
Yeah. So I wrote this screenplay called Iron Lung, and it's like a stoner kung fu movie. And it's a guy who does nothing but plays video games and smokes weed and watches action movies all day. And he's sort of just a bump on a log. And then one day he finds out that, like, through repetition, sense memory, you know, that whole thing, like if you study for a test drunk, you have to take the test drunk.
Right. Yeah.
It's sort of like the same thing. Like, he's been building up his reflexes, but he's stoned when he does it. And he's never tested it on anything other than video games and stuff. So turns out he's got super fast reflexes and is good at martial arts and stuff, but only when he's stoned. And I actually got that from when I used to play Guitar Hero a lot. And I would get stuck on like a really hard song on Expert. And I'm like, fuck. And I'd walk over and I'd do a bong rip, and they'd be like, all right, let's try this again. And then I would nail the song first try. I was like, oh my goodness, it's the weed. So that was sort of where I got the idea for that. And I entered it. I entered it in a bunch of screenplay festivals because I don't know, there's no real crossover from radio to other sort of any other form of entertainment. We're like the redheaded stepchildren of entertainment. So it's been a real struggle trying to find connections to anybody that can help in that department. So I just entered in film festivals and stuff, and I've won some awards, and I've come very, very, very close over the past 4 or 5 years of selling it. But the big issue I hit is, you know, it's an action movie, so it's kind of big budget. And every time a production company or a studio is close to buying it, it gets axed by one dude who's like, we just can't put that money into a first-time untested writer. So it's been I came up with the concept probably 10 years ago, wrote the script maybe 8 years ago, and then just have been fine tuning it and submitting it ever since. And, everybody's pulling from the same well. There are times where people accuse us of stealing bits from Howard, like, oh, that bit's kind of similar to Howard. And then there are times where people hit us up and be like, hey, did you see Howard stealing your bit? And it's like, calm down, dude. Nobody's stealing anything from anybody. We're all drawing from the same well. We're all trying to come up with ideas. Sometimes people just come up with the same ideas at the same time, or nobody is actively listening to rip people off.
Right.
So I'm not under the impression that anybody ripped me off. It was just, I've had this sense of urgency, like, fuck, I can't believe that nobody's thought of this idea before. I have to get this out before somebody who actually has a chance of selling something gets it out there. And then, of course, I see a headline 6 months ago about how Andy Samberg and his production company are putting out a comedy stoner movie where somebody smokes weed and gets superpowers. So it's not exactly the same as a martial arts movie. So it's more of like a comic book superhero stoner movie, but they're going to come out first. And if I ever sell Iron Lung, it'll forever be like, yeah, that's like, Dante's Peak and Volcano, Deep Impact and Armageddon. There's always seems to be two of an idea. So maybe I could be the Dante's Peak to that volcano.
That sucks. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine being in the entertainment industry like that and just constantly fighting and crawling just to get recognized. And some people do it and some people don't. Another one is your Craigslist. I thought Craigslist got rid of all those type ads. How are you finding those?
They did. So when Craigslist nuked their casual encounters section, because I think too many people were using it for prostitution and selling drugs. So they wiped it, and we didn't do it for a while. And somebody hit me up on Twitter saying, hey, there's this other website called Double List that has personal ads. So I get them all from Double List now. We just call it Craigslist because that's how the bit's always been. And Craigslist is just a way more recognizable name than Double List. So just works.
Does it creep you out, some of those things you read? Because I'll sit there. It's like, I don't know where these people come up with these thoughts or what they want done. Or
me neither. I mean, it's nice to know that people have their kinks and they're finding people to link up with. Like, if you like sniffing pits, there's somebody out there that likes getting their pits sniffed, and the two of you connect, and hey, that's fucking awesome for you two pit sniffers. I don't really have any strange kinks in my life, so it's just interesting. I like things that are interesting. Like, life can be vanilla, and when you find other flavors, even if it's a flavor you don't want to try, like there's bacon and eggs flavored ice cream at some places, and I don't want to eat that, but I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, for somebody, because people like bacon.
Yep. And I sometimes I see some shit on there that's dark, and I know I get a feel. You're never it's never 100% exact science, but I know some stuff that will piss Ellis off or be like, oh God, I don't even want to riff on that. That's too dark. So there's definitely stuff I find when I'm cruising that's really fucked up, and it's like, yeah, I don't know if that'll actually bring out the funnies, because it's fun when somebody's like, hey, I want you to be my toilet seat. Or, hey, any grannies out there want to get pissed on? Like, stuff like that. Like, you can make some jokes about that. Some of the stuff people are into is just dark, and all you can really do is bring it up, make a grossed out face, and go, ugh. All right, let's move on.
Huh. How about Tully? Are you ever intimidated? Because that dude he's fucking sharp. He's sharp, no one. He's really smart. Is he ever like, sometimes you kind of question yourself before you say something to him? Because it doesn't seem like he'd be a jerk about anything, but he's so quick-witted, and then on top of that, he's very knowledgeable, like, of worldly things. Like, sometimes I listen to him like, what? I never even thought. Some of the things that come out of his mouth, I'm very impressed with.
Yeah, he is incredibly quick, and it's sort of like I don't know. I'm sort of like, I don't know what you would call it, but a vibe vampire. So like, if I'm around a bunch of people that are just mopey and like, ooh, it'll make me sort of just mopey and And I don't know if you're familiar with Bert Kreischer. He's been a guest on the show
Yeah,
a bunch of
Bert.
times. Bert is such a fucking ball of
Of energy. He's
energy and fun. And when you're in his presence, it's contagious. And I start feeling like energetic and fun. And he laughs so easy, and his laugh is contagious. And I feel like being around people like Jason and Tully, it's like contagious. So when they're riffing, it sort of just powers me to step my game up and riff harder. And yeah, Tully is definitely the highest educated of the group and the smartest. And it's nice to have that there because I can throw something out that's incredibly stupid and wrong. And then he'll correct me. And then it's like a double whammy because there might be people that thought the same thing as me. He'll correct me. I'll look stupid. That's funny. And then you might learn something. So that's also a plus. So it's never been a hindrance to me where like, oh shit, I better not say that. Because I don't really mind getting riffed on and goofed on and getting clowned. Because if something funny is happening, no matter who's doing it or who is at expense, it just makes the show better. So anything that makes the show better, I'm fully into.
So how's your love life? Have you been able to go outside now that how is it over in California? I know that are they lifting up restrictions, aren't they, on restaurants and stuff? And they did that here in Texas. The mask mandate is gone after March 10th, and it's optional.
Yeah, you guys are swinging the doors open down there.
Yeah, I'll still, dude, it's weird. There's some people. I'm in QAnon Central in some spots, so it's very interesting to hear some thoughts that you run into Texans, and it's like, whatever, you're kind of nutty. So, but how's it out there? How you been able to go outside and meet some girls? Because every time you hear on the show, it sounds like you're just like, I'm not leaving until this is over with, and your dating life is on hold. Have you been able to go outside?
I know there are some people that have thought that I haven't even left my apartment and I'm just like out of food and picking pieces of drywall off and eating it. But like I do, stuff is open. Like out like you said, outdoor dining is open. Retail stuff is open. So I still go and I get my comics every week. Just toss a mask on, and they don't have it at full capacity. So sometimes you're outside for like 5 minutes until people leave, and then they let you in. But if I need something, I go get it. If I'm like, you know what, I want some fucking ice cream, I'll walk to the grocery store. I'll buy a pint of Ben & Jerry's, come home and eat it. I've done my share of hooking up in the.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, like it's sort of like a case by case basis. I've only hooked up with like 2 different girls since the lockdown started, but if you see on somebody's Instagram, they're like out at parties and like every weekend and drinking in people's faces and woo selfie. It's like, all right, maybe we'll hold off there for a little bit. But if somebody's like, yeah, I wear my mask, I do my shit, I'm social distancing, it's like, all right, yeah, let's hook up.
Cool. Good for you. You're in a position where you should. I remember that interview with Keenan on Howard's show, and he said Bill Cosby told him he should have at least 2 dicks because he's going to get some. I mean, that's not a good endorsement for Bill and Cosby, but yeah. At the same time, when you're in a position of celebrity-ish, because you're pretty famous, I would think. A lot of people know who you are. I know who you are, and I'm sure a lot of girls. Yeah. Plus, you have a personality. Yeah,
we have a very duty audience. So like when we do Ellis Manias and stuff, like big events in Vegas and all the listeners fly out, it's always dudes. If there are girls, they're like with their husbands that listen. There are definitely single girls, and I've hooked up at Ellis Manias and stuff, but it's a very duty event. And the handful of times that I have been recognized out in public, it's always a dude. And when you're in LA, like people also don't really give a shit about that. My last long-term girlfriend, the guy she dated before me was a director, movie director, and he actually got like nominated for an Oscar a couple of years ago. And she used to go out to movie premieres with him, and she hated it. she didn't give a shit about celebrity. She didn't think it was cool that I was on the radio. Like, people out here aren't very easily impressed. Like
go ahead. I'm
and people
sorry.
are so used to it too. Like I remember, before things shut down, there's a popular spot out here called the Grove. It's like an outdoor mall, and then there's a permanent farmers market attached to it. And they have lots of cool, really good restaurants where you can just grab something to go and sit down. And it's the eatery outside is sort of cafeteria style. So you buy something at one of the stands, and then you go sit down in a chair and eat. And I see Seth Rogen and his wife walk by with their kids, and I'm like, oh, cool. There goes Seth. And he's just walking around. I'm eating my sandwich, and then like 15 minutes later, he comes back down with food and sits down. And the whole time he was there walking around, not a single person stopped him for a picture or went up to him, was like, hey, Seth. Like, I see like famous people out all the time at Starbucks, and I've never seen anybody go up to him and ask for a picture. It's just, people are so unimpressed in LA.
When I lived in New York City, I used to work at a health club out there, and we had a party at some bar, and Harry Belafonte was at this bar. And one of the guys I worked with walks up to him and does that this was early 2000, really like 99, 2000. So I don't even know if cell phones had cameras on them yet, but he hands him the phone. He's like, my mother's a big fan. Will you call her and leave a voicemail or something? I was like, are you seriously doing this to the guy? He's just out, relaxing, and you're coming up bothering him, wanting to call his mother. So yeah, I can imagine. And then I used to work in professional sports. I've been around, did a gig in NFL and NHL, and I'm just saying they're normal people. Sometimes you just get used to them, and I've never barely been one for autographs and stuff. So it's nice, but you're in like Celebrity Central, so I'm sure you see all people time, and you probably just get used to seeing them and stuff. I don't know about now, but other times
it's still pretty cool. It's still like, I live in Studio City, and there's a decent amount of like people here. So sometimes I'll see people that were in the office, like grocery shopping. And that's still a thing that like, it's still cool. It's like, oh, holy shit. Look at that. They buy groceries just like us. Look at that. They eat oranges.
I would see like the gym I worked at, Equinox up on 85th and 3rd. There would be like that Jordana Brewster from Fast and the Furious.
Oh yeah.
Her mom and her sister worked out there. Wow. Yeah. The whole the trifecta. And then there was, but yeah, you'd see other celebrities. I saw Sigourney Weaver.
Nice.
Without makeup. She kind of looked like an alien. No offense, Sigourney, but yeah, she was tall and really tall. She was like 6'2" and really skinny and really white, like yeah. But yeah, I know. Yeah. How about so you got the other podcast going on, and I've listened to your Mad Scientist Party Hour. How long is that? That's been out for quite a while, right?
Yeah, we started in December of 2010.
Oh, so wow.
We officially crossed the 10-year mark. And this week we're recording our 500th episode.
Nice.
Which is a bummer, because we had always wanted to do some sort of big, fun blowout event and maybe try and do something live and have listeners come out for it. And sucks that we still haven't gotten this shit really under control yet. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and do something fun on this week's episode. And then, our show is very stupid, and it's very silly, and it's very random. And I feel like it's more in our wheelhouse to do a big blowout show for like episode 527 rather than 500. Like, it's just more on brand for us to do something stupid.
Are you guys in? I think you and the last one I listened to, there are two you and another guy are in studio, and the other guy sounds like he's on Zoom or something. Are you all kind of?
My one friend, Shuddy Boy, who I've known since I was a teenager, he lives in Pennsylvania, so he Skypes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do it over Zoom now. Right at the beginning of when COVID started getting a little sketchy, my other co-host, Jeff, he lives in Long Beach, and he lives with his two brothers. And one of his brothers got like super sick. And this was in the time when you couldn't even get a COVID test. Like, if you were really, really fucked up, Like they didn't even have tests to test people. So he was like, look, dude, I feel fine, but my brother is pretty fucked up. And we're pretty sure it's COVID. So I don't know how you want to handle this. And I was like, well, let's just do it over Zoom. And it worked. So, you know, we've just been doing it that way ever since. It's a bit of a bitch for people that aren't familiar with LA geography. You know, driving from LA or the Hollywood area to a beach town is not too far mile wise, but traffic wise, holy shit. Like bring a book, learn Mandarin on tape because you're going to be in your car for a very long time. So it sort of just works easier for now for him to just zoom in, you know, save some gas money, save a little bit on the stress. And I think in like a month or two, we're probably going to start doing the show in person again.
How many episodes do you guys do? Once a week? How often do you do them?
Once a week, yeah. And then we do one Patreon show a week. And then we've all started doing, anytime we get an idea for a silly one-off show, we throw it up on our like $10 tier of our Patreon. And we have a pretty good record so far. Like we'll get an idea, we'll film a test episode, and people love it, and they're like, "Please keep doing these." And I'm like, fuck! Now we got a whole other show to balance. Like we started doing a watch along podcast for episodes of Supermarket Sweep, the game show.
I remember that from the 80s. Yeah, I remember that. I used to love that show.
So they have episodes on Amazon Prime and Netflix. So what we do is we start recording, and we all have it queued up on our iPads, and we all hit play at the same time, and then we do like a Mystery Science Theater riff track over it.
Okay.
So people play the podcast, they hit play on the episode when we hit play, and then we just goof on the episode with it. And that, I have a feeling if we made that a free podcast, it would be bigger than Mad Scientist Party Hour. Like people are obsessed with it. The second a new episode comes out, the comment sections blow up, and people are like, a couple days later, like, when's the new one? When's the new one? So
that's cool.
We've sort of turned that into a dumping ground. You know, I feel like a lot of people have more free time these days, and we've just been using that to create new shows and keep them going.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I'm new. Shit, I've been doing this for I started mid-January. I don't know if I'm doing well or not. I've had some pretty cool guests on. You, Jason. Yesterday I had, if you've seen Bigfoot documentaries, I guarantee his name's Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum. He's a professor from Idaho State. He's like the Bigfoot researcher. And we talked for like an hour and a half today. It was so cool. He had brought on a plaster cast, and I mean, some of his stuff, but you know, it was a really cool interview. You know, I've had Olympic athlete on. I just don't know how to read stats. And I mean, I know green is good, and I'd like to get creative ideas. It's kind of like, you know, do little things where you could do something. I don't know how I'm doing.
It's a learning process. Everything is just seeing what sticks. I mean, just in the changes we've done over the 10 years, we're still making adjustments and trying things, and it doesn't seem like this is working anymore. Let's phase that out and bring something else in. Let's try doing this. Yeah, you get the feel for it, you know? It's sort of like a sixth sense that you just develop over time. It's just, but like with anything, you know, it's practice.
Yeah.
You see what people react to. You take, you know, you can't always listen to people on social media, but I consider everything people mention, and if it makes sense to me, it's like, you know, that's a good idea. I'll stop doing that. Or if somebody says something, hey, I don't like it when you do this, and then I think about it, and I'm like, you know what, I actually disagree with that guy. I think I'm going to keep doing it. You just feel your way through it, you know, throw shit at the wall, and it sticks.
Yeah, I've had two. Nothing yet. I mean, all my reviews are positive. So, yeah, and I'm just trying to keep variety. I thought I was going to go one direction, and you know, I've been fortunate to have people like you. I'll just ask. I just sent a message on Instagram, and I'm surprised when they say, like when you said yes, and Jason said yeah. Whoa, and then it actually happened. So it's neat just meeting different people. I may have a really famous shark biologist coming on from, it's always on Discovery Channel during Shark Week, and fingers crossed, you know, just shit like that. I like learning, like that Bigfoot guy, you know, hunters, a lot of girl hunter, like female hunters, because that's a big deal now. So, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to keep it original and do what I like more than anything. Meeting people like yourself that I find interesting and, have cool stories to tell. That's all.
That's the best barometer. Like I feel like if I feel what we're doing is in the zone and I'm feeling it, it's like, all right, I think this is going to resonate with people. And my rule of thumb is when I start getting bored, that's when it's time to move on. Like if we're talking about something and it's like I find myself starting to space out or thinking about like, oh, what am I going to fucking make for dinner? It's like, you know what? If I'm thinking that, probably somebody else is thinking it. Let's switch gears and try a fresh topic.
I've had one or two guests where I'll like just nicely go up to my screen so I could see what the time is up in the right hand corner. Cause it's like, whoa, I've only 10 minutes in. And I'm already struggling here. So, but the majority haven't been that way, but every once in a while I'll be like, okay, I don't know
I've
if I
been
can
there.
make this happen.
I've been there.
Well, listen, dude, I appreciate you coming on. That was awesome. You said yes. And I'm glad things are working out for you guys because you guys make a lot of people's day. Listen to you guys, you make everyone laugh, you make me laugh. And like I said, just as soon as I hear the show's over and that outro, just that, I just start laughing. The way you do it, shit like that just is worth the price of admission for myself. So yeah,
Thanks,
thanks for the laughs. I appreciate it. And Mad Party Science Hour, right? Mad Party Science Hour, right? That's the name
Mad
of
Science Party Hour.
Party Hour. I'm sorry.
That's a mistake I made very early on. Pick an easy to remember podcast name.
Yeah. So he's also got the Mad Science Hour. Shit, did I say it wrong?
Mad Scientist Party Hour. Yeah.
I'm starting. I saw
that one.
I saw Jason post that thing this morning with him and Joban, and Joban was calling the guy Benavides, and Jason's like Benavides. He goes, "It's Benavides," and then they start. The guy was getting his name the wrong. So yeah, no, you say so. It's you say it right now. Mad Science Party Hour. Yeah, awesome. Okay, hey, again, thank you for coming on, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, dude.
All right, have a good day, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care.
Bye.